All right, let's start with the number one poll of the day is how do you feel today? Everybody feel good about the last USC win over LSU over the weekend? That was a nice win. Last 8 seconds, right? So, um, how do you feel? Stressed? Middle of the week? We're 2 days from Friday, so not too far away. A little over 48 hours. It's what's I'm curious, what's the other? Like I put a other option because I couldn't express it, but anybody curious about telling me that what's the other besides happy, relaxed, stressed, and sad? Mixed feelings, maybe? Yeah. Okay. Um, okay, so for those of you who are stressed, hopefully we are not going to stress you more in this class. Let's try to relax a bit, right? Yet learning some. And for those of you who are relaxed, woohoo, let's go. So let's start learning about this software development methodologies. Let's talk about this, right? So there are two major software development methodology that on the market. Guesstimate, what are these? Anybody know? Educational guess? Not a random guess? Anything? Okay. So waterfall and agile, right? So by just looking at the name, we pretty much get a general sense of what are each of them, right? So, um, so what are differences between the two different processes? With the name, anybody can give a guess? Go ahead.
Agile probably goes through like quick iterations to develop a product.
Awesome. That's right on point. Any guess about waterfall? Your name is Ben, right? Good. I'm learning. Go ahead, Josh.
Oh,
Yeah, answer it.
uh,
Oh yeah, waterfall. Like, what do you think about by just looking at the name? What do you think about what waterfall development process is?
uh, basically just think about what's an idea and then just follow to the idea well and go.
Yeah, it's a long process, right? So waterfall is gigantic versus agile, where it's small and iterative, right? So that's the general difference, right? So let's go into a little bit more details about this. So waterfall technology methodologies are often called the traditional approach. Well, by looking at the traditional name, you know it's kind of old, right? So when we start with the requirement analysis, and then we'll do the design, we'll do coding, and then we integrate all the codings, and then we'll do test, and then deploy the product. Very straightforward, right? So generally at least like a month long, usually goes 2 years long project, right? So stage by stage, step by step, right? You do very well of requirement analysis, well designed, reviewed, coded, tested, integrated, more testing, and deploy. Okay, so straightforward. The advantages is it has a clear requirement for each of the steps, right? The process the process wouldn't move along if the previous step didn't get approved, right? So that's the key point of being in a waterfall. Every step is well planned out, supposedly, not always though. And know the scope and pretty much know about the budget you're going to spend on this project. The disadvantages, that's pretty straightforward, right? It's very hard to accommodate change. Think about this project that lasts for like a year or 2 year long. And if you want, the market has changed. AI just started. We don't need this project anymore. Can you shift your requirements. No, I'm sorry, this is our contract. You're built for $100 million and this is it, right? So that's usually, it doesn't let you accommodate with a lot of changes at all. So it's hard to make a shift in between. And finished product is almost always happen. Like I'll find the actual number next time, but we always see some project that's not well done because it's so long. Even NASA got cut off all the time, right? So with the budgets, once the budget's being cut, guess what? The entire project's left undone, right? So that's the waterfall. And the plan usually just won't work. That's straightforward. Okay, versus agile methodology. Here's the difference, right? Instead of focusing on the process, we focus on the individual interactions, right? We constantly coming back and talk with the product owner, which constantly trying to change it, right? So this is we break that long process into a smaller chunk where we're going to see a picture soon about the agile process. But instead of focusing on the process and using great tools to build it, we'll focus on the small interactions and trying to get small product built first and roll on it, right? So, and we focus on working software. We focus on with a sprint time. Today, we're going to learn about the sprint process. A sprint time means a small chunk of a time. You will go through the entire cycle and you will deliver something that's going to work, right? Even though it's very raw, even though it's very rudimentary, very simple, but we want to make it work and deliverable, right? So focus on the working software part, the working part, instead of having a full documentation talking about 100 features all at a time and then build that 100 features all at once too. And then we focus on customer collaboration versus contract negotiation. So we constantly go back and ask the product owner, what do you want? How can I help you? What do I build that you actually need it versus you think you want this with 1,000 features and I'm going to build 500 of them, then tell me that, you know what, that I don't want the other 500 anymore, or 200 out of that 500 I built is not usable. We don't want that wasting time of work. Instead, we want to break it down to the smaller chunk and validate that with our customer all the time. And we're responding to change rather than following the plans, right? So pretty simple, straightforward. And question here, what process will NASA take when they build a project? I just mentioned waterfall, right? They need to budget it out for a couple $2 billion and then need to plan out the whole thing when they're trying to build a rocket, and they need to follow it. And when the budget got cut, they're done, right? So but there's a moment of truth there, right? For building a rocket and sending somebody into the outer space, it's not that simple. You probably can't just build it and launch a rocket tomorrow. That's not going to work, right? So, but obviously Elon flipped it a little bit in the industry. But usually waterfall projects are for large, well-built, well-planned projects. But what agile process has become so popular today? What's the drive there? Give me a guess why agile is what we're going to learn in our class. We're going to try, but why it becomes so popular nowadays? Any guess? Ben, go ahead.
Maybe because technology is like always updating. So that's something like NASA, like I feel like rockets aren't updating as much as like modern technology.
Exactly. The keywords is constantly updating. And the second keywords that you brought out is, for example, web, right? So mobile web technology is flipping every single year, right? Even every other month. So it wouldn't make sense for you to build a year-long, 2 year later, and then new technology already becomes too old. Plus, because of the internet, you can get in touch with your users all the time. You can do customer interview. You can launch your product right away. You can remember when the internet era, I remember the mobile app era just came up. That was when all of you are still young. But when I first graduated from college about 10 years ago, we launch fake ads on Facebook to test our ideas, right? We'll say, hey, here's something that we're building. Do you want it, right? If they click into the ads, then we build it, right? If they don't click into the ads, we know that's something that people don't want, right? So we'll get constantly feedback instantly, and we'll constantly build based on the every step we'll launch a test. Every step we'll get some feedback. Based on that feedback, we'll decide how much whether we're going to throw more energy into this project and constantly learning and as we go, as we build. Okay, so the internet era, mobile era, really drove up all these agile development process. So, and to give you an overview about how agile methodology works, and we're literally breaking the large process down into a smaller cycle, iteration, right? AKA sprint, where we're gonna get into today. It starts from evaluation, prioritization, and detailed requirements, design and analysis, then implementation and developer testing, which is implementation is coding basically, right? So QA and testing, and then we'll go back to launch the product, and we do it again, right? This literally almost is the same as waterfall, but we just break it down into smaller chunks, and we skip through a lot of detailed documentations. Like we don't have time to write like documentations for 5 days because our sprint might only last for 7 days, right? So we'll talk about it. We'll write the key points down. We'll start building it. We're constantly getting feedbacks. All right. So the process is the same. We're not skipping any of them, but we shorten the time period. We chunk off the ones that's not useful, right? And then we focus on learning, building, launching, learning, building, launching all the time. So let's start with another poll here. Remember, your attendance is based on the poll. So whether we won't grade you on it though. We just want you to answer it to get engaged a little bit. So the number 2 poll coming up. Now that we talked about it a little bit, answer, what are some characteristics of agile methodology? Select all that apply. Sorry if you couldn't do multiple selection. Can you? No? Okay, good. I spent at least like 2 hours on the phone with ITP, ITS for Slack, pull everywhere, Trello and everything. I'm still having some troubles there. But I will try my best to maybe stay on another call, or stay on another 2-hour call with them, trying to fix everything. I just got the enterprise authorization for pull everywhere. But our TAs couldn't join me anymore, unlike before I being added. So I got to fix that again. So good. A lot of you selected on the answer. Sorry. Okay. Too big. Okay. So valuing individuals and interactions over process and tools. Obviously, it was just on the slide, right? So using working software more than the documentations. Who hates documentations? I was an engineer and I literally hated documentations, right? So just let me code, let me build something that's useful. Don't write all the documentations that's not so useful. But I learned it the hard way when my engineer had left me from my company, that no documentations, no later engineer can pick up my project and continue to build it. That's just the worst part. But I was an engineer myself. I was constantly coding all the time, and I didn't want to write any documentations. Agile development process, we don't force you to do that, even though we'll let you know how to do it later on in the class. Okay. All right, just a little side thing. to chat about it a little bit. All right, so as I mentioned, each iteration, the keyword is called a sprint, right? Sprint like running, right? Sprint, short, fast, making it work. So this is the agile development process. We already talked about a lot of these advantages. So besides the advantages, we want to mention about the disadvantages as well. When anybody who actually comes to me, when I did my first startup when I was a junior in school, and everybody will come to me, I was a CTO, will come to me and say, hey, I want to build this website. It was a musician collaboration platform. And they're like, I want this for the phase one, that for the phase two, and blah, blah, blah for the phase three. How much do you think it costs? And how much do we need to raise in terms of money? And I always tell them that, number one, you will change your mind when I built the phase one. For phase two, I'm sure that you won't want these much features anymore. Number two, depends on how many users and blah, blah, blah. I just cannot give you a rough estimate. There's no way, right? We're constantly building and testing. And there are features that you want me to build now that you won't want later. And there are other things that are going to pop up that we haven't thought about just yet. So guess what? Sorry, the life of a startup is running through the kiosk. So that's also the agile development process too, right? So we have a rough idea about what you're going to do as a project in this class. We'll try to go through the entire cycle, but still at this moment, we're going to talk about the groups, and we're going to talk about the projects a little bit today, and we're going to decide on the projects next week. But I cannot predict how much you would done for your project at the end of the semester, right? We have milestones you have to hit, but it's hard to estimate how much features you will have. Okay, so yeah, the confusing vocabulary, this is just new, not so new. Once you get through the couple sprints, you know, right? We'll talk about this, the key terms one by one today. So another poll. One second. Deactivate. All right. Which of the following is not advantages for agile methodology? Yep, almost all of you got it right. So we just said it's almost always never able to decide the entire budget for the project when we use the agile development process. Okay. All right, so let's talk about the roles. These just three major roles we're gonna use, right? Aside from what we talked about the entire project roles last week, designers, developers, front end, back end, etc. These, when we talk about this, we're talking about the sprint process, right? So we have a product owner, which it's not going to be part of our class. When we pick a project, we want the real actual product owner, right? To talk to us, what they want, how we're gonna do something for them. And then we have a Scrum Master. Sometimes Scrum Master and Project Manager are the same individual, but sometimes they are separate. Scrum Master is more of managing the process. Make sure the sprint goes smoothly. When we do the sprint planning, we should do it right. When we do this sprint retro, we'll do it the right way. Just making sure each of the tasks is distributed correctly, etc. Versus project manager usually keep up with the project timeline, right? So what does the project product owner want, right? So sometimes they're the same person, sometimes they're not, and you can actually get a certificate to be a Scrum Master. And now we know that AI is hitting on the entry-level programming jobs a lot. Scrum Master haven't, right? So making sure the process goes smoothly, managing AI as part of the workforce is even more important. So I do recommend for those of you who are interested, looking into the Scrum Master certification. It's a good title on your job resume. Okay, so project manager is one of the key person. So without a good project manager, you wouldn't be able to translate what a product owner want to the actual engineer requirements, right? They want an iPhone that can fly. Sorry, can't do it, right? Well, give me like 5 drones, so I'll make it happen for you, right? So depending on how you translate their requirements, it'll drastically different on putting on your engineering workload, right? So when you say yes, we're gonna do it in a week, really? Can you really do it in a week or a year? Right? That's very important, right? So project manager is a key role, and it's going to continue to be a key role in the future, right? So so that's project manager is, trust me, that's going to be, even within the AI industry, it's hard to understand the product requirements. It's a people job, it's not an engineering job, right? So project manager is very important. And development team that inclusive of what we talked about, designer, UI, UX, front end, back end engineers, system architects, blah, blah, blah. They're all in the development teams. These three roles comes together to make this sprint process happen. I'll pause here. Any questions? So far, so good? Clear enough? Okay, good. Awesome. So this is more breakdown detail of a sprint process, what we're gonna do, right? So today's assignment, it's basically just starting a sprint and make sure we do it the right way, right? To bring it into the actual sprint details. We'll have a product backlog, which means a bunch of things that we need to do. And then we'll pick what we're going to do for this week, prioritization, right? Once we prioritize it, we go through this sprint, we'll start the sprint. We'll start the development, we'll start the design, we'll start the entire working in progress. And then daily setup. The reason we have like a 5-day kind of a check-in thing, call it daily, so-called daily scrum, right? So how's everybody doing? I finished my part. How about you, right? So just kind of gather the workforce, making sure things are moving along the right way. Takes about 5 minutes, 10 minutes per day, but to check in with each other. And then at the end of the sprint, we'll try to make this product shippable. Shippable means deliverable, deployable, usable, right? So you will literally present something to your product owner, say, hey, this is the prioritization that you told me and you want me to do for the last sprint. Is it what you want? How do you think about it? Do you like it? If you do, we're gonna do more on top of this. If you don't, guess what? We just wasted one sprint. But that's so much better than wasting half of your work for the past year, right? So sprint is a very small iteration, but a mitigate the dilemma between you and the product owner. Okay. And by far, you can probably see that this is just a working strategy, right? So this is a methodology for you, how you manage your projects, right? It does not just apply to a technical project, right? If you have a band, you want to write a song, you can use this process as well, right? From your agent, you can ask for the requirements and you build something sampling. And then you launch it and you check with everyone every day and you deliver a little finalized edited sample to your agent and say, hey, this is what we thought. What do you think? Right? So this sprint process is just a fast and structured iterative working style. And it works well in a modern working era, right? So most of you will go into the industry soon, and most likely will hit something like this when you're in the companies now. Like 10, 15 years ago, not so much, half and half. Now, almost everything, especially all the new social media related, that they are even faster, right? So they need to do daily videotaping and scripting. So that's, and groups in parallel can work together as well, right? Which we're going to talk about it, not today, maybe later. I'm trying to get someone from TikTok group to come and talk to everyone, but still yet to hear some answers from them. Okay. So task boards. So what software do we use to manage this? There's a bunch of them. Jira, Asana, Trello. Anybody used any of these? Good, couple of you. As I mentioned, right? So we have a list of the things that we wanted to do, and for this week, we'll prioritize the things that we wanted to do. And then if you start working on it, you drag your task into this. This is just a command board, right? So, and in review and testing, once you finalize it, you put it in here, and once it's reviewed, it's done, right? This is a very simple process of managing a sprint. And for as simple as possible purposes, we use Trello in this class, and all of you should just receive the invitation today, right, John? So I had problems with the old ones. I had to create a new one, sorry. But we'll use this simple Trello board to manage the entire sprint process throughout the entire class, okay? Okay. Yeah, let's talk through this process quickly, right? So as I mentioned, sprint planning before we start the sprint. What will be done for this sprint? Again, coming back, I mentioned a couple times is the prioritization, right? So what's more important for us to do this week? And usually that involves with the product owner and product manager. Product manager ought to have clear mind about what's the priority, right? So in our class, besides the product owner's requirement, we have a deadline, right? So we have a milestone deadlines that you have to hit. So we definitely don't want to build something that's too much or too little, and to meet that deadline as well, right? So in the real world, that's always the case too, the deadlines. And we'll, during the sprint planning process, which we will show you in a class example just in a bit, we're going to plan out the tasks. We're going to talk about how this entire week goal to be achieved, right? And how to distribute the task between each of the team members as well. Sprint is execution, as I mentioned. We do a daily check-in with everyone and make sure everybody is doing well, doing their work. And if they are not doing their work, guess what? You come up and do it for them for now and revenge later, remember? Okay, so you do have a way to revenge at the end of the semester by using peer evals. And in the real world, that guy got fired, right? So people do their work, right? So At the end of the sprint, there's sprint review process. We have a team and stakeholders discuss what's done during the sprint and discuss and maintain the backlog, which means that we'll come together and see what's done and tell us how they like it, how they don't like it. And we would also talk about what goes right and what goes wrong during this sprint. I thought this task I can make it done for 2 days, but it actually took me 48 hours of working time. That's crazy. Next time I'm not gonna pick that task or break it into 2 smaller tasks for me to do, right? So these are the good things that you have to go through so that the team will readjust on the working speed and everything, right? On a weekly basis as well. That's the speed retro, review and retro, right? They're going together. These two goes together, right? That's what I'm trying to say. So you review what's done and talk about what went right and what went wrong. Okay, so that's an example of a task work, right? So the backlog, assuming this board is during the week, right? Somebody is working on to do their, when nothing is in progress, it's almost done. Some of them are done. Some of the tasks I planned for the beginning of the week didn't even get touched up about. You see that all the time, but we try to mitigate that, right? So the task name is very simple, and then we have a name of the task was assigned to. And then what's this little 1, 3, and 5? Any guess? What's this little number behind each of the tasks? Employee number? Any number. You're not going to be penalized if you didn't answer it right.
Priority?
Priority, good guess. And then any other ones? Hours of work, that's number 2. Any other? Any other? Go ahead.
Like the story points, how big the project is.
Story points. Okay, great, awesome. That's right on because you had some experience on that. This is story points. We're going to talk about it, right? So similar to the hours worked, but not exactly. We'll talk about the difference, right? So and we can certainly put a priority on there as well, because if we have a lot of things to do, even though we want to put it in a week, we can always prioritize it as well, right? So Nick, I won't try to learn the name. I'm sorry, what's your name again?
Nina.
Nina. And sorry, what's your name?
Bryce.
Bryce. Okay. Nick, Nina, and Bryce. Thank you. Awesome. So story points. How to estimate a task and measure a workload. The points is a abstract number. We can use the Fibonacci number just to begin with, 1, 3, 5, 8, 13 up to 13. And we give each, we group into groups, right? So we'll talk about one task and we'll assign a point to it. Right, so for example, if I should just head into the examples. Yeah, here's the rules. So we'll put the task in the backlogs, and then during the sprint meeting, we'll use Slack to do the program planning exercise, right? So we'll assign the points for each of the tasks we're going to do for this week, and also assign the owner. Only one owner. We won't want 2 because they will say, hey, he didn't do it. He didn't do it, right? So we'll assign one owner of the task. If a task needs to be done by 2 persons, break it down to 2 tasks, right? So that's how we're gonna work with the task backlogs. And then we'll start with the new sprint report, and then we'll do the sprint retro later. Okay, so how do we actually do the story point assigning and program planning process in a team? let's do a classic example about it. Okay, this classic example, all of you can be the observer, and me, Ja, and Diane will be the temperate group delta, right? So we have three groups for which we're going to talk about. All of you have been assigned into groups, right? So we'll talk about the groups a little bit later. We have three: Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie, and three of us, for the class example purposes, will be the team Delta today. So we'll go into the Trello. This is our board, right? So as I mentioned, already pre-structured the springboard for you, right? This is the class example board. Each of you have a team Alpha, Bravo, and Charlie. Should I enlarge it a little bit so everybody can see it better? Is this better? Okay, so the board structure, as I mentioned, similar to the example ones, start with the backlog, current sprint to do, and then in progress, developing, testing and QA, and finished, right? So that's that. Let me clear this off. We were just testing it. Okay, so finished, done, on hold for some reason. Ideas, not even a task that can be in the task reserve. Junk drawer, you hate it, just want to throw it away. Some resources, right? So, but what's our focus each week is from backlog to done, right? Pretty simple, right? Just a task management board. What happened? Okay, so I've been experiencing all funny technical issues recently. I don't know why. See this pop up, it doesn't even show up with this icon. So okay. All right. So the classic example is we're trying to build a product, which is our ITP-460 website, right? And assuming the development team and it's three of us, right? So all of you are product owner right now, right? Give me some random tasks what we should do for this website. Anything. Shout out. Okay.
Do user research.
User research, that's a hard one. User research. Okay. Any other ones? Design the database. Okay, that's a good one. And I'm sorry, what's your name? Megan. Okay, Megan. And any other ones? Ooh. Okay, almost broke. All right. For engineered product. Okay, there we go. All right. Any other ones? UI UX design. Okay, as a project manager, I would ask you, like, what do you mean UI UX design for the entire website? For each page, like, okay, so UI UX design for each page. Okay, two more. Megan, determine the tech stack. Okay. Sorry, what's your name again?
Faith.
Faith. Gotcha. So, okay, so, oh, okay, scares me all the time. One more. Anybody? Random one. Well, how about you? Pick one.
Like user flow.
User flow. Okay, sorry, what's your name? Jen? Okay. User flow. Okay, so these are fab tasks. Kind of I can put it also in ideas because these are requests, right? These by looking at these, I may not be able to break it down into tasks just yet. Right. So let's say for this work, me as a product owner, the Scrum Master too, I need to start breaking it down. It's like, okay, we want the UI UX design. That's probably number one, and determine on the tech stack, right? So let's do this. Determine on the tech stack, so we know how we're gonna build this website. And also, we probably wanted the UI UX design, or user flow, and user research. And guess what? It's already too much, maybe, right? So start prioritizing. We're gonna do maybe the user research and tech stack, maybe the user flow, and leave the UI UX design. And then I start looking at it and say, hey, still not enough. Why? What do you mean? Like by user research and user flow? These are two different tasks, but similar, right? So what are we trying to do? Like, what do we want for this class as a website for our user, right? Do they want, we want them to be able to see all the assignments on the website? We want them to be able to submit their assignments too, or just see it, right? Do we want them to be able to see our lectures or no? Or do we want them to be able to see their group members or not, right? So we start thinking about this and start breaking it down into more detailed tasks for this week. Write 3 user stories that for our students. So that's pretty much the user flow, right? So we'll archive it and replace it with an actual doable task, right? So determining the task stack would save that, and user research will actually take our user story and go out and talk to students, see whether they want it or not, right? So let's say these are the 3 tasks. Now, this is the prioritization, right? So that decided what we're going to do for this week before we start the sprint. This is the planning phase. The next thing we're going to do is Ja, I want you to be able to help me decide on the tech stack. Can you take that task? Okay, if Ja is taking this task, basically just assign. I didn't even give him a chance, right? So the next thing is let's pull up Slack, where the fun thing is happening. So here's the Slack. On Slack, all of you, once you invited, you'll be assigned into the channels. We're not keeping any channels private. We don't, because most likely you won't be taking the same projects from each of the groups, but we want you to learn from each other, right? Don't steal too much things, but learn. So you have a daily scrum, you have a corporate planning, and feel free to create more channels. Okay. So this is the ITP-460 Slack. Each of you will be invited based on the groups. And we will use this lecture channel today so everybody can see how we're doing it now as a program planning channel. Okay, so coming back, let's make another task. So write 3 user stories for students. Dan, can you do this for this week? Okay, so good. Yes, another task out. So the third one, user research. And Dan, can you do this? Okay. All right. So okay, Nice. Thank you. Good. Nothing for myself for this week. So this is the 3 tasks that you just assigned for this week, assuming this is everything for everyone, right? So, but then we get into the story points estimation, right? We need to know like everybody who's spending how much time on what, right? So doing what, right? But instead of assigning the hours you're gonna spend on it, here's the story points, right? So the difference is I'm a very bad writer, right? If you want me to write these 3 user stories for students, I got almost all my C's are from writing class from college, right? So if you want me to write this 3 user stories, probably take me 2 hours versus for Diane, it's probably taking 15 minutes, right? So it would not be making sense that we assign this task to be 15 minutes because if Diane called in sick and say, hey, I can't do it anymore, suddenly I will be the one doing this, but it will take me 2 hours to do it. Does that make sense? So we do not want to assign a working hours for each of the tasks because each of the individual will do the same tasks differently because their abilities are different, right? Their abilities are different. So, but guess what? Within the team, we'll still want some measurement of a unit that will measure the complexityness of a task, right? So that's how we're using the story points, right? But one particular task for someone, even though we know it, Diane will do it, we might have different views on how complex it is, right? So that's where the poker planning comes in, right? So let's start by doing this. Let's take the right 3 story. Let's take the right 3 user story for our students. Let's take this one. Also, it should let's see. Do you see this little number here? The Agile guide, which is the plugin, it automatically assign a number for each of the card as a task number, right? So you don't have to always read out the task name, but you can say, okay, task number 9. To do task number 9, let's do a poker planning on this, right? So, okay, so in this channel or in your alpha planning channel, right? Poker planning channel, I will just use the lecture channel so that everybody can see. Me, Jia, and Diane, 3 of us, we will put in a number coming back to the lecture. Remember, the numbers are 1, 3, 5, 8, and 13. After 13, put a number that you think this task, the complexity of this task to yourself, right? Or to Diane, whatever you think, right? Put a number for yours that you estimate the number, task number 9. What do you think how complex it is for this task, right? So and don't talk to each other. Besides, if you have a question about how this task can be done, right? So the example, we'll just do this. Hold on. Okay, for task number 9, I'm hiding myself, so I don't want John and Diane to see this one, okay? And I will show you the result in a bit. So, all right, ready? We'll put a number to estimate task number 9, okay? Just 3 of us. So 1, 2, 3, send. Wait.
I made a mistake.
Okay, so this is the result, okay? So John think is number 1 complexity task. I think it's number 3. Dan always means number 3, right? So now that she mistakenly typed in 33. Penalized. Shall we come up with penalized? Shall we come up a crack on her? But anyway, so then we have different opinions on this. Then we allow someone to express why. Job, why do you think it's one, not a three?
Because it's just writing one paragraph.
Well, he thinks it's just writing one paragraph. Okay. Why don't you take it? Right, so no, so, and then why do you think it's three?
I just think it needs a lot of consideration because your like whole project is gonna depend on that and it's more than just like how much you write, but how much thought you have to put into it.
That's great. So do you agree with what she said or?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So some forcing need to be done, right? Scrum Master, here's your power, right? So you need to make sure they all agree on the same one. So once you sort of agreed on the same one, you can either redo it again, right? So, or we just assign it to the task. So if all of you agree to one, we just take 3 on this task and we save it. Okay, now you see the little 3 thing story 0.3 next to a task. Okay, let's do one more. All right, so let's take this determine on task stack. Let's take that. And determine on task stack. Before we start estimating it, are you ready? Any questions about this task? Dan, you good? Yeah, you good? Questions?
Like what kind of?
Okay, so that's a great question. What is a task stack first, right? So what is a task stack? That term. Sorry, Megan, you came up the question and you expanded a little bit. Yep.
Manage the database, any front end or back end frameworks that you're using. That help you connect them all together.
Yeah, usually like there's a one example last week that we talked about, right? The mean stack, right? So OJS and something, right? So for example, what technology do you use for front end, right? React.js, Bootstrap, are we using any frameworks? Blah, blah, blah. Are we using WordPress, right? What technology do we use for the back end? And what technology do we use for database? What about server, right? So these are the things that we need to decide, right? So, and based on these informations, since we're all doing the same work together, right? Can you decide it by yourself?
I can't.
You can. Okay, like what? What do you think we should use for each of them?
For front end, we should do HTML and Bootstrap for the framework.
Okay, do you agree, Diane, that we're gonna use Bootstrap? Have you had experience with the Bootstrap before?
I wanted to disagree with the document that we have.
See, like, it worth a discussion, right? Besides the determination, right? For some tasks, oh, okay, sorry, for sprint planning purposes, we won't be able to come up to an answer. Let's set up a separate time just to focus on discuss each of the individual's tech background. And because throughout the entire semester, we're gonna build this together. So, but you're in charge with grouping everyone, understanding everyone, and there might be some technology none of us have used it, and you need to do enough research about it before we can finalize this. Okay, so that's the actual task we're going to do for this week instead of just taking it, right? You need to talk about the full content of this thing and point out the direction on how Java will going to be able to finish this task during the sprint planning. You don't just come up and throw a title, say, that's yours, go ahead and do it, right? So you also want to, each of you, before you estimate the story points and assign it to someone, you want to fully express your details about each of the tasks, and so they clearly know what to do with it, right? So that's very important. Otherwise, the story points you're going to estimate, it's not going to be accurate. And he's not going to know what to do after, right? We want to break it down as a project manager and Scrum Master. Scrum Master makes sure the process works the right way. Project manager makes sure the tasks break down the right way too, right? You don't want to break down a very vague task that nobody know how to do with it, and come back 5 days later. Oh, I don't know how to do it. I didn't know this requirement. I didn't know what you mean by giving me this task. Why don't you say it at the beginning of the sprint planning? Right? That's just the excuse you're telling me. Right? So, well, we'll go through this. We're not everyone gonna be perfect from just this the beginning of the sprint, but as we go through this, we learn how to work together as a team, learn how to do this little by little, right? Okay. All right, so enough about the talking, and then we can really talk about the details, and we can also comment it by Jia wants to use HTML and Bootstrap, and Dan, what's your recommendation again? React.js, just for the front end. Yep. So you can actually comment on this so that we know that you discussed about this task before you finalize your sprint planning, right? So now the fun part, right? Let's estimate on this task. The more that you talk about it, the more details you know how complex it is, right? So ready? 3, 2, Dan, you got, well, give you one more. All right, so Dan actually threw in the numbers before I said done, right? So you don't want to give everybody else's your opinion, because people just follow you, right? So each group can make up a small fun thing to do with someone who did it wrong, right? Especially Scrum Master, right? Make him eat a spoon of a hot sauce or something, right? Just kidding. But anyway, so I think it's number 3, and they think of number 2 and 5. And then we talk about why do we think about it that way, right? So, and we finalize it, and we assign it. We're not going to repeat that one more time, but this is how you do the sprint planning. See that? The good sprint planning will save a lot of your time. Trust me. Every single semester, the reason that we make after class a lab now, before I only will do the lectures, and then I'll break it into groups. If you're done, you're gone, right? So later I started changing. After lecture time, we want every team to do their sprint planning right on point. The reason so is that that's the only chunk of time that you're really going to pay attention to this class and to your group, really assign and discuss thoroughly about each of the tasks and assign it. And then people can go back in the imaginary world, which never happens, but we hope to get there, is each individual don't have any more questions, just do it and finalize it, the task over the week, right? So they'll save a lot of communication about, hey, what I actually should do this one. I thought it was this, but it's not, blah, 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 and done a lot of work and start blaming each other throughout the entire process. So, okay, so we try to avoid that. But everybody got the idea? Even though at beginning, we use only 1, 3, 5, 8, 13, but throughout the entire semester, gradually you can use number 2, 4, 6, 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? So up to even 20. The reason so, trust me, it would never get to 20, because if a task actually takes about 20 points to do, you won't be able to finish it within a week, right? So as you go throughout the entire semester, you start realizing something. What's that thing? Like, with a certain time period, you can only finish certain points. Each of you have your own little converter, right? For me, even though I'm doing a lot of backend work, if I do backend work, 2 points of complexity is equivalent of 1 hour of my work, right? For design work, 2 points of complexity equals to 5 hours of my work, right? But this complexity point, story point, is an abstract number that only to your own team, right? The team has an average abstract number level, and you can turn around and measure each of everybody's work by how much points they've done per week too, gradually, right? This never goes well from the beginning. Be patient about it. Don't get stressed out. But as you go through the entire semester, you'll get a better idea. And in the future, when you start working in a company, a good project manager knows their ability of their entire group, assuming the group there's not only in and out people, right? The same group will always have the same people. A good project manager have a sense of how much work they can be done throughout weeks. And that's where they start having a better requirement planning, time planning, resource planning, budget planning. Right? So it'll get there. And you can see some high performance team in a certain company. They always deliver on an average story points level per week. And it's amazing how you see it, right? So, okay, so this process that I talked about is very brief. Each of the companies might be a little bit different, but the general strategy is the same. The concept is the same. So let's just practice and get to this, right? Let's use this one to practice. Okay, let me go back to my lecture notes. All right, so continue. Let's finish the example by a last step, right? So let's assuming that determine the test stack, that's a 5-point work, and then user research. I'll just assuming that we already finished it. Okay, that's a 3-point work, and once we assign all the tasks for this week, we will click on this heading icon, and then we click on new sprint, and our team is a Delta team, right? So Delta sprint number 2, and calculate based on the sprint to do. There's 11 points assigned, and is it? Yeah, I think so. 2, 3, and 1, 5. Yes. Oh. Calculate based on the current to-do list is 11 total points. Select your sprint down list right there, and backlog list is the backlog. And select your daily backlog list to be the in progress. And then the starting date would be September 4th, which is today, and the end of the sprint date will be 11th, 7-day. For our class purposes, we're keeping a weekly sprint, right? So some of the companies keep it to two weekly bi-weekly sprints, 1 sprint every 2 weeks. But for our class purposes, we'll just keep it on a weekly basis, right? So save, and then as people moving along, at the end of the sprint, you can see the sprint report. But the, sorry, we haven't go through the dates, so they can't show you the actual moving charts, right? So assuming that we're just doing daily by assigning and finalizing it, but then there's the average of how many points are done per day, how many cars have done, and give you a general sprint report. And part of our assignments throughout the semester is to be able to export this report and submit it on a weekly basis. That's how we finish our sprint assignments. Yeah. Okay. So and for once we done, let's say we finish this one, we generated a sprint report, and the task usually, as I mentioned, as we see in the class, the lecture examples, and some done, some are still developing, some are untouched. Sprint ritual is we will come back and sit together and say, hey, Ja, you only assigned for one task when you haven't finished it yet. What's going on? Why didn't you let me know throughout the week? Right. So that's a hard way of asking it. By Californians, we'll ask, what happened? How can I help you to get it done? Right. So right. So we always talk about what's wrong, what went right and what went wrong. John may say, hey, I thought it was a 5-point task. It's actually like a 13-point task for me, right? And John may want to say, hey, I only finished the front end research part, not the back end research, right? Then I would come back and say, hey, John, next time we hit this, guess what? Break it down to 2 tasks. It's okay to break it down to 2 tasks and assign each of the points and tell us that this is actually a 13-point task, not a 5-point task. And break it down to front end to be 5, back end to be 8. That's fine. And then and move along with finalizing what you can finalize. That happens. Not always, but happens, right? The better you estimate from the beginning, the better you get it all done. But things always happens. Yeah, this is the full sprint process at a glance. So the today, I think today's assignment, yes, should be. Yep, we do have a daily sprint. Yep. So we won't, I don't think we are grading you on the first sprint, but we're starting the first sprint and doing the daily scrums already, right? So that's the today's assignment. Any questions about this? Is that sounds like too much work? Or is that more structured way of a group assignment, basically just one way of structuring a group assignment and the communications, right? So, okay. So that concludes our guest lecture for today. And give you some a little extras industry insight time, right? So this is just a fun thing to look at. So when you do waterfall, when anybody who actually asks you to ask for a quote, to say, puppy website that I loved, can you do it for me? Can you quote me on something? The rule is always charge them 3 times more. That's Mackenzie does it, PwC does it. So because they always change, right? So they may change half of their requirements, and you're under-delivered, they're overestimated, they have a lot of expectation, deal breaks, and they'll sue you for things, right? So this is a little interest. And at the beginning, they will always say, oh, I trust you, I think you can get it done. And later on, why don't you get it done the right way that I wanted it, right? So always charge them three times as much. very first little company that started, all of that student club is helping other people to build an e-commerce website. I learned this the hard way, right? So good thing they didn't sue me at the time, but yeah. Group distribution. Anybody haven't really had a chance to look at the bright space about your groups? If you haven't, log on there and they should be able to see their groups, right? Yeah.
Under activities and then go to groups, there are three groups. I should make a link.
Sorry, excuse me. So based on some of your requests, I did put you into the groups you wanted it. If you do have a preference, right? So we have a group of 665. So we have a group of seven, and we have 17 students currently enrolled in the class. Some of you didn't do the assignments, and if it's technical difficulty, let me know. We'll work something out. But since I don't have your background, I just throw you all into some random groups. Okay, so if you're not, if you want some change or some shifting on the groups, you still have a chance. Let me know. The groups will be locked by Saturday this week. Okay. All right, the assignments. Let's go on to Brightspace and do it. So, let me view as a learner so we can see the same thing. So week 2, so that's the previous lecture 2 recording for reference. It will be replaced once the current one is done. That's a lecture, class poll everywhere. That's a link, lecture 2 assessment. Again, if you can't make it to any of the lectures, group meetings is not always exempted, right? But for the class lecture, because we're covering a lot of the same topics that maybe covered before, you can do your lecture 2 assessment before the class starts. And you have to get 70% correct on the answers to get the class lecture, so you don't have to come over, right? This is a little extra perk to not to board you on the topics that you already knew. But I actually created a lot of extra work for Dan and then John, so thank you for the 2 of them making it happen as an option for everyone. So class week 3, lecture number 3's lecture assessment will be available since tonight, right? So we'll try to post it earlier to give you a chance before still technical difficulties. Sorry. So these are the week 2 assignment links will be available soon too. Dan should be available soon, right? So yep, the assignment 3 and 4, which is for this week, will be available. It's majority of the times is due Tuesday night, the night before the class starts, right? So I'm sorry, it's not there, but we can let me refresh. Okay, well, so as hold on 1 second. Assignment 3 and 4. So assignment 3, daily scrum. So basically, once we assigned you into the groups, right? So team channel has been created in Slack. Sorry, we can change that name a little bit. It's Alpha Daily Scrum channel. Yeah. And sorry, to update that. It's Alpha. We changed the name Alpha Daily Scrum channel. Yeah. Okay. So discuss with your team what the time the daily scrum should be held. Again, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, right? So 2 of them, 5 total, right? 2 of them are either in person or over the video. You guys can do it over the Zoom link. But today is after class is one of them already, right? So for the rest of it can be text-based, right? So in the Scrum channel, you just say, hey, everyone, I'm okay with all the tasks I'm working on, or hey, everyone, I have some questions about 1, 2, and 3. Hey, just an update. Okay, and the Scrum meeting should be no more than, sorry, I would say because we have more students per group now, each students usually take 2 to 3 minutes, right? So usually it was 5 people team, so no more than 10 minutes. But we're not trying to come up and really talk about the whole background about what I got and what I'm going to do. Is, hey, do I have any difficulties on finishing this task? I need Ben to help me on this and this and that so that I can finish it, right? So that's the daily Scrum. Okay. And yep, and then you should also update the Trello about the task progresses, etc. And just a daily check-in. Questions about the assignment? Yeah. Daily Scrum, as some of the tech companies, they also call it a daily stand-up, because they don't want, some engineers really likes to talk, to express about what they know about the technical knowledges, right? So then they make up, everybody has to, at the beginning of each day, they will come up and really stand into a little circle, and each of you only get to talk for like 2 minutes or 3 minutes to talk about the task, what I've done, what I'm going to do, right, for the day, what's my difficulties, when do I need help, to be helped, and then break out. So because not all the engineers like to stand all the time, so that's the way they come up for it. So that's it. All right, so the other assignment, let's go back to the lecture page one more time, is coming up, the lecture 3, product design. And some of the semesters, this semester, I don't think I can pull him over, but one of the past 10 years, two of the past 10 years, we had a guest lecturer that did an amazing guest lecture for product design. And we're going to talk about the famous design thinking process. I think it's going to be continued famous for the next 15, 20 years, especially in the AI area, where you can build a lot of amazing personalized product yourself. This is product design thinking is the process that works with the sprint process, that helps you really map out what you want, what product you want to build for your customer, right? So we're gonna learn about this, and this is the book. The process is actually built by Google, right? So this is a Google design sprint, Google design process. Obviously, they didn't create it from the beginning, but they formalized it into this kind of a 5-day working 5-day workshop, right? So every single Google venture invested startup company has to use this. So that's how effective, how much ego they have in their process, right? So they really think it works, and it does work. Basically, we'll go through a mapping, sketching, deciding, prototyping, test it with the real users within 1 week of a product cycle, right? So we'll try to touch upon the theory a bit, and then we'll try to run it a little bit on a smaller version, smaller scale version. But we want to give you an idea about how this works. So really, you want to read into it and learn about it. There's a whole resource about it online. Also, the book, the PDF book will be made available to you as well as part of the assignment. So assignment 4 Yeah, just a quick read and then summary. I promise don't make you do more readings than an hour and a half. I hate readings. I remember I got all C's all writings. So, but it's a fun read, trust me. And go in there and write a little summary about this reading, okay? And before we actually step into the class. All right, as I mentioned in class, as lecture 3, class assignment will be available online on Brightspace. If I missed anything. Okay, projects. So next week, we're gonna give you options on projects as well. Well, we're not gonna talk about it too much today, but we have 3 options. One is the engineering challenge, which we're gonna show you next week. We don't have to decide by next week, right? We'll decide the week after via groups. And we have second is I'm trying to pull some of my projects over and just to give everybody an option. And third, if you are having some projects that you want to work on, within your group, you have to persuade your group to take that project, obviously. But feel free to let me know and come up and talk about it a little bit by next week, right? So next week we'll talk through all these 3 types of projects, and each of you within a group will decide what to take on. Okay, just announcement. If you do have some projects you like to work on with your team for this semester, let me know. Yeah. Okay, but you gotta have at least one person that's not in the group to be the product owner. So that's the requirement. So you can't be your own product owner all the time. So find a client that works too. Like people who's going to use your project as a customer, that's fine too. But he has to be your target audience and willing to work with you throughout the entire semester. Okay. Any questions? Go ahead.
Assignment docs are, like open, like the Google drives and got any permission to look at it.
Sorry, which the assignments?
Yeah, like the assignment page on docs.
Okay.
only opens-
Oh, okay, let me change it. Diane, can you change it to like USC viewable, please? Thank you. All right, so any little extra details that's not presented correctly, please let me know. Drop me an email and stuff, then it will be appreciated, or Slack. Okay. Yeah, maybe extra credit for that too. Thank you. All right, thank you very much. That's good for the day. And for those of you, we extended the second assignment to be tonight, right? So make sure before you leave, meet with your team and also work with us to get you all like into all the softwares like Google Drive, Slack, Trello, all of these. We should have you on there. Yeah. So by tonight, all you need to do is just type all done, submit, and you'll get full credit. Yeah.